June 15, 1961, 8:04 a.m. Mrs. Johnson walked into her daughter's bedroom, but Ruthie wasn't there. The bed was neatly made. The window was open, and on the pillow sat a note. Not one from Ruthie. A note meant for Bumpy. "We have your daughter. $500,000 by midnight or she dies. No police. Don't try to find her. Just pay." Her scream brought Bumpy running, 3 stairs at a time. When he saw that note, when he saw her empty room, something shifted in Bumpy Johnson's face. That calm, unreadable mask he always wore, it cracked, and underneath it was something sharp, controlled, dangerous. What happened next would become legend in Harlem, not because of how many people Bumpy hurt, though there'd be consequences, but because of what he did in 4 hours. 4 hours to find his daughter in a city of 8 million. 4 hours to locate men who had planned this down to the minute. 4 hours that proved one thing: no one touched Bumpy Johnson's family. Not and got away with it, but to understand what Bumpy did that day, you have to understand who Ruthie was. Ruth Johnson was 16 in 1961, his only child. His pride, his light, his entire world. Ruthie didn't know the details of her father's business. She just knew people listened when he talked. That door opened when he walked by. Bumpy had kept her far from his world. She went to a good school. I had good friends. Did normal things. That's all he wanted for her, a life without fear. But someone had chosen to use her, and in doing so, made the worst decision of their lives. 8:05 a.m. Bumpy's hands were shaking as he held the note. Not from fear, from how hard he was trying not to explode. I was on the phone, calling everyone. Neighbors, Ruthie's friends. Anyone who might have seen or heard something. Bumpy stood by the window. It looked over the alley. They came through the fire escape, quiet, fast, prepared. They had watched the house, learned her routine, waited for the right moment. Ruthie left for school every morning at 7:30, but this morning, she never made it past the fire escape. Bumpy checked his watch. 8:06 a.m., they wanted money by midnight. That gave him 15 hours. But he knew better. These kinds of people rarely waited that long. Too risky. Too many chances for it to go wrong. Which meant, in reality, he had maybe 4 hours. 5 at most. 4 hours to bring his daughter back. Bumpy turned, walked downstairs, and picked up the phone. Junie answered on the first ring. "Get everyone to Small's Paradise. Now. I don't care what they're doing." 10 minutes. "Boss? What happened?" They took Ruthie. There was silence on the line. Then Junie's voice came back, hard as steel. "We'll find her. We'll bring her home." Bumpy hung up. I was crying, scared, but I looked at him and saw something different. I knew what Bumpy could do. He kissed my forehead. "I'll bring her back," he said, "no matter what it takes." 8:17 a.m. Small's Paradise. 37 men sat in the empty restaurant. Bumpy's entire organization. Numbers runners. Street hands. Enforcers. Lookouts. Every man who had ever stood with Bumpy. Sat waiting. Bumpy stood before them, holding the note. "Someone took my daughter," he said. His voice calm, quiet. "They want $500,000. They think they can use my family." He looked around the room. They're wrong. Every man in there felt it. This wasn't just about Ruthie. This was about the line you don't cross. Families are off limits, always. "Junie," Bumpy said, "call every informant, every cop on our payroll, every pair of eyes in this city. Find out who's been watching my house, asking about my daughter, snooping around. Willie. Check the train stations, the airports, the bus stops. If they try to move her, we need to know. He looked across the room. The rest of you, fan out. Talk to everyone, bartenders, doormen, street kids. If someone saw something between 7:30 and 8 o'clock this morning, I want to know. A man raised his hand. Boss, what if it's the Italians? What if it's Genevieve's making a move? Bumpy's eyes narrowed. Then Genevieve's just made the worst mistake of his life. But we don't jump to that. We find proof. We find Ruthie. Then we take care of the rest. The men rose and moved out like a wave crashing over the city. They hit Harlem, Brooklyn, the Bronx, every corner, every whisper, every possible lead. Bumpy stayed behind, alone at a table in Small's paradise, watching the clock. 8:34 a.m. It had been just 30 minutes. Felt like hours. 9:15 a.m. The first lead came in. Father Divine called. The man of the cloth had ears everywhere. People told him things. People talked when they thought no one listened. Bumpy, he said. I heard something. What? 2 men were asking about your daughter last week. Asking where she went to school. What time she left the house. Who? White men, Italian. One had a scar across his left eye. They were drinking at McLaury's, Little Italy. Bumpy wrote it down. Thank you, Father. Find your daughter, Bumpy, but remember, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. With respect, Father, Bumpy said. Today it's mine. 9:28 a.m. Bumpy sent Willie to McLaury's bar. Willie walked in at 9:45 a.m. gun visible under his jacket. The bartender, a nervous man in his 50s, looked up. We're not open yet. Willie pulled out a photo of Ruthie. This girl, he said, 2 men were in here asking about her. I want names. The bartender's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Willie grabbed him by the collar and pinned him against the wall. Let me make this simple. Bumpy Johnson's daughter was taken this morning. Those 2 men? They're involved. Now, if I don't get names in the next 10 seconds, this place goes up in smoke with you in it. The bartender's whole body started shaking. Okay. Tommy Marciano. They call him Tommy the Hawk. He was here with another guy. Names started with S. I don't know the rest. They work for someone. I don't know who. Where do I find Tommy? Red Hook. Warehouse near the docks. 43 Pier Street. Willie let him go and headed for the door. If you're lying, I'll be back. I'm not lying. I swear. Willie called Bumpy. We got a location. Red Hook, Warehouse, Pier Street. Could be a setup. Probably is. I don't care. Get 10 men and meet me there. 10:23 a.m., but Bumpy didn't head to Red Hook just yet. Something felt off. Tommy the Hawk was a small-timer. Just muscle for the Genovese family. He didn't have the brains or the guts to pull this off alone. Someone bigger was behind it. Someone with power. Someone who thought they could lean on Bumpy. He picked up the phone and dialed Detective Murphy. Murphy was a cop. Not a clean one. He'd been on Bumpy's payroll for years. Murphy, I need information. About what? Vito Genovese. Has he been making moves? There was a pause. There's been some talk. What kind of talk? He wants Harlem. Wants control of the numbers game. He's been looking for leverage. Something to make you come to the table. Maybe. Your daughter. I need facts. I don't have any. Just rumors. But the timing lines up. Where is he right now? His club in the Bronx, Arthur Avenue. He's there every morning. Bumpy hung up. Now it made sense. Genovese had called the shots. Tommy was just the middleman. The plan? Take Ruthie. Push Bumpy to give up Harlem. Get the money. Then kill her anyway. Send a message. It was cold, calculated, exactly the kind of move Genovese would make. But he'd miscalculated one thing. He didn't know what Bumpy Johnson would do to save his daughter. 10:47. A.M. Bumpy walked into Genovese's social club with 5 men. No call, no heads up. Just walked in like he owned the place. The guard stepped forward. Bumpy's men raised their guns. Sit down. Be quiet. Vito Genovese was in the back, playing cards with 3 of his captains. He looked up, and for a split second, he looked surprised. Bumpy, this is unexpected. Where's my daughter? Vito slowly set down his cards. I don't know what you're talking about. Bumpy reached into his coat and pulled out a straight razor. The same one he'd carried for decades. He opened it, slow and calm. Vito, I'll ask one more time. Where is my daughter? The captains moved for their guns, but Bumpy's men already had them drawn. Standoff. Bumpy, Vito said, measured, if someone took your girl, it wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. You're lying. Maybe, maybe not. But if you do something stupid here, you'll never see her again. And my people? They'll go after your wife, your friends, everyone. You really want that? Bumpy stared at him. 10 long seconds. Then closed the razor and put it away. You've got until noon. If I don't have my daughter by then, I'm coming back. And I won't be asking questions. Understood? Genovese gave a small nod. Understood? Bumpy turned and walked out. His men followed. Inside, one of the captains leaned in. Boss, want us to take care of him? Genovese shook his head. No, let Tommy finish it. If she dies, Bumpy falls apart. And then we take Harlem without a fight. But if Tommy kills her before noon, I know. That's why we're leaving. Get the car. Outside, Bumpy stood still for a moment. Genovese never said it out loud. But his silence had confirmed everything. He was behind it. But he wouldn't give Ruthie up, which meant Red Hook was the only lead they had left. 11:03. 3 hours and 33 minutes since Ruthie was taken. Bumpy had made 2 promises that morning. To bring his daughter home. And to make the ones who took her pay. It was time to keep both. Junie pulled up with 10 men. Boss, we're ready. Bumpy looked at each of them. These weren't just men. They were loyal, brave. They'd follow him into fire. And today, that's exactly what he was asking. Red Hook, Warehouse 43, we move quietly. We get Ruthie out safely, then we finish it. No mistakes, no witnesses, no mercy. What if it's a trap? Then we spring it. 11:31 a.m. Red Hook, Brooklyn. The warehouses were quiet, empty. The street smelled of salt water and old fish. Warehouse 43 was tall and brick, 3 stories, windows barred. One way in, Bumpy's men moved in. Willie took the roof. Junie watched the back. Bumpy and 5 others moved toward the front, inside dark, dusty. Crates stacked high. Dripping water echoed somewhere. And then voices. Upstairs, men talking. Come. On Tommy. Just finish it. We got what we needed. Genovese said, wait. We collect the cash first. Forget the cash. This girl's trouble. Her old man's tearing the city apart. That's the idea, genius. When he pays, we send. A message. Bumpy reached the 2nd floor. A door ahead. Light spilling out from underneath. He leaned in. Heard her voice. Please. Let me go. I won't say anything. I swear. Shut up. Say another word, I'll cut out your tongue. Bumpy's hand gripped the knob. He looked at his crew. On 3, 1, 2, 3. He kicked the door open. And the room exploded into chaos. Tommy the Hawk stood over Ruthie, knife in hand. She was tied to a chair, gagged, terrified. Two other men sat at a nearby table, counting cash. The moment they saw Bumpy's crew, they all reached for weapons. But Bumpy's men didn't wait. Shots rang out, quick, sharp. The two at the table went down instantly. Tommy yanked Ruthie toward him, pressing the knife to her neck. "One more step and she dies," he shouted. Everything froze. Bumpy stopped in his tracks. Everyone did. "Tommy," Bumpy said, voice calm, too calm. "You let her go right now, and I'll make it easy. You resist, and it won't end quick." Tommy smirked, trying to sound brave. "You think I'm scared of you? You're outnumbered. This place is surrounded. Your boys outside? Probably already gone." "No, they're not." The voice came from behind Tommy, Junie. He'd come up the back stairs, gun raised and steady, aimed right at Tommy's head. "You're the one who's trapped," Junie said. Tommy's eyes darted between Bumpy and Junie. He knew it. He was cornered. But desperation is a dangerous thing. "I'll do it," Tommy snapped. "I'll kill her. I swear I will." "Then you'll die a second later," Bumpy said quietly. "And not by a bullet, by my hands. I'll make sure it's slow. I'll make sure you feel every second of it." His voice didn't rise. He didn't flinch. "Your call, Tommy. Quick or slow, you decide." Tommy's grip tightened. The knife pressed closer to Ruthie's skin. A small red line appeared. That was the mistake. Bumpy's expression changed. No anger, just cold. Still dot and one smooth move. He pulled a pistol from his waistband and fired. One shot right into Tommy's shoulder. The one holding the blade, Tommy cried out, dropped the knife. Junie rushed in, grabbed Ruthie, and pulled her away. Bumpy stepped forward, picked up the picked up knife, stood over Tommy. "You cut my daughter." Tommy was curled on the floor, clutching his shoulder. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Genovese made me. I didn't want to do it." Bumpy crouched down, looked him in the eyes. "I believe you, but you still did it, and now you pay." What happened next? No one ever spoke of it. Not Junie, not the others. But when they walked out of that warehouse 15 minutes later, Tommy the Hawk was gone. So were the other two, and Bumpy Johnson carried his daughter out in his arms. 11:52 a.m. Ruthie was shaken, but alive. In the back seat, Bumpy held her close as Junie drove them home. She cried into his chest, "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for, baby. Nothing. This wasn't your fault. I was so scared." "I know, but you're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you again. I promise." When they pulled up to the house on 122nd Street, Mrs. Johnson came running outside. The moment she saw Ruthie, she collapsed into tears, grabbing her daughter, holding her like she'd never let go. Bumpy just stood there for a moment, watching them. His whole world right there in front of him. He'd brought Ruthie home. He'd kept his promise, but he wasn't done. 12:14 p.m. Bumpy picked up the phone and called Frank Costello. "Frank, I need to talk to Genovese." "That's not a good idea right now, Bumpy. I just pulled my daughter out of a warehouse. Genovese's men had her. One of them put a knife to her throat, so I'm going to talk to Genovese. The only question is, will it be a conversation or an execution?" There was a long pause. Then Frank sighed. "Where do you want to meet?" "Neutral ground. Your place." 1 hour. Bumpy hung up. He kissed Ruthie's forehead, told his wife he'd be back soon, and left. He had one last promise to keep. The one he made to himself. Someone still had to answer for this. 1:15 p.m. Frank Costello's restaurant, Manhattan. The place was empty, quiet. Frank sat alone at a table in the back. 2 bodyguards stood by the entrance. Bumpy walked in solo. The guards started toward him. Frank waved them off, let him through. Bumpy sat across from Frank. Frank poured 2 glasses of whiskey and slid one over. I heard you got your daughter back. I'm glad. Thank you for setting this up. I didn't have a choice, Frank said. If I hadn't, you'd have started a war. Still might. Bumpy took a slow sip. Genevieve tried to use my daughter to take Harlem from me. Frank nodded. I know. That can't happen again. If it does, I'll kill him. I'll kill his people. I'll tear down everything he built. Frank studied him for a long moment. You mean that? Every word. Frank leaned back. Vito made a mistake, a bad one, but he's still a boss. You can't just take him out without the whole commission responding. Then what do you suggest? Frank thought. For a second. You want justice. I get that. But killing Vito starts a war. Everybody loses, so here's my offer. We hold a sit-down. You, me, Vito, the other bosses. Make it official. What he did, it broke the code. Family's off limits. Everyone agrees. He apologizes, publicly, in front of the commission. And he pays restitution. How much? $500,000. Same amount he demanded for ransom. Bumpy nodded slowly. That's the money. What about the blood? 3 men are already gone. Tommy and his crew. That should cover it. Bumpy shook his head. Not enough. What else do you want? I want Genevieve to say it to my face that he'll never touch my family again. That Harlem stays out of it. And I want every boss in that room to hear it. Frank gave a slow nod. I can make that happen. When? Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Ravenite Social Club. All 5 families will be there. If Vito refuses, then you'll have my blessing to do what you have to do. Bumpy stood up, offered his hand. Frank shook it. Your daughter's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. And that's why I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. Anyone forgets that, they'll learn it the hard way. June 16, 1961. 2 p.m. The Ravenite Social Club, Little E. This was where power lived. The commission, the 5 families, the heart of organized crime in America. Bumpy Johnson walked into the room, alone. Every eye turned to him. At the table sat 5 men. Frank Costello for the Luciano family, Carlo Gambino, Tommy Lucchese, Joe Bonanno, and Vito Genovese, stone-faced, cold. Vito locked eyes with Bumpy, full of hate. Bumpy didn't flinch. His face was calm, unreadable. Have a seat, Mr. Johnson, Frank said. Bumpy sat down directly across from Genovese. Frank looked around the table, then cleared his throat. We're here to address the situation involving Mr. Johnson's daughter. Vito, you want to explain yourself? Genovese leaned forward. It was business, not personal. She's 16, Bumpy said. She's never been involved in any of this. In our world, Vito said with a shrug, everything's business. Leverage is leverage. Bumpy's hands clenched under the table. Carlo Gambino leaned in. That's not how we do things, Vito. We made that clear a long time ago. Families are off limits. Wives, kids, they're not part of this life. Times change, Genovese muttered. No, Frank cut in. Rules don't change. You broke the code. Now you make it right. How much? Genovese asked. $500,000, Bumpy replied. Same amount you demanded from me. Genovese let out a short laugh. You want me to pay you? You kidnapped my daughter. Tried to extort me. Got 3 of your men killed. Yeah. I want you to pay. Bumpy leaned forward. And I want your word that my family is off limits, forever. The humor drained from Genovese's face. I don't take orders from you. You're not giving me an order, Bumpy said quietly. You're giving me your word. Or I walk out of here and we settle it another way. Silence. Everyone at the table knew what another way meant. War. Loss. Chaos. Tommy Lucchese broke the tension. Vito, pay the man. This is your mess. Joe Bonanno nodded slowly. You crossed a line. Fix it. Genevieve scanned the table. No one stood with him. Not today. They all knew he'd gone too far. His voice tight. Vito said, Fine, I'll pay the $500,000. And your word, Bumpy said, holding his gaze, that my family is untouchable. Genevieve's jaw clenched. You have my word. Say it properly, in front of everyone. No confusion. Vito exhaled slowly, like the words were fire in his mouth. I, Vito Genovese, give my word that Bumpy Johnson's family is off limits. I will not harm them. I will not use them. Harlem remains independent. This ends here. Bumpy gave a single nod. Good. Then his voice dropped lower. Now, apologize. Genevieve blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. You terrified my wife. You traumatized my daughter. You broke every rule we have. Apologize. Genevieve's face turned red. I'm not apologizing to you. Bumpy stood. Then we're done here. He looked at Frank. Thanks for trying. But some men only understand the consequences. Wait, Frank said quickly. Vito, just apologize. Right here. Right now, or this doesn't end. Vito looked around the table again. All eyes were on him. Every boss knew. If he didn't apologize, Harlem would go to war. And they'd all pay for it. Finally, through clenched teeth, he said, I apologize. For taking your daughter. For threatening your family. It won't happen again. Bumpy studied him, then nodded. Apology accepted. I'll expect the money tomorrow. Vito scowled. Fine. You got what you came for. Now get out. Not quite, Bumpy replied. There's one more thing. Genevieve narrowed his eyes. What now? I want everyone in this room to understand something. Bumpy looked at each man, one by one. I didn't come here to take power. I didn't ask to run Harlem, but Harlem is mine now. And I protect what's mine, my people, my streets, and especially my family. He stood tall, calm, and clear. Today was about my daughter. But tomorrow, if anyone even thinks about trying what Vito tried, I won't ask for a meeting. I won't sit at a table. I'll burn everything down. Silence followed. Then Frank Costello gave a nod. It's understood, Mr. Johnson. You've made your point. Good? Bumpy turned to leave, then paused. One last thing, Vito. What? Your men, Tommy the Hawk and the others? I know they were following your orders, but they laid hands on my daughter. They're dead. You can't keep killing my people, Genevieve said. Bumpy looked back over his shoulder. Watch. Ami. Then he walked out of the Ravenite Social Club. Behind him, 5 of the most powerful men in New York sat in silence. After a long pause, Carlo Gambino finally spoke. Vito, you're a fool. That man would have taken down every one of you as to bring his daughter home. You're lucky to still be breathing. Genevieve didn't answer. Just stared at the door Bumpy had walked through, June 17, 1961. Morning. A courier arrived at Bumpy's home. Briefcase in hand. Inside, exactly $500,000 in cash. The amount Vito had demanded. Now returned. Bumpy counted it, then picked. Up the phone, called Frank. I got the money. Good, Frank said. What are you going to do with it? Bumpy looked across the room. Ruthie was on the couch with her mother, quiet but safe. Still healing, still shaken. But alive. I'm starting a scholarship fund, Bumpy said. For kids in Harlem who want to go to college, in Ruthie's name. Something good should come out of something so terrible. There was a pause. Then Frank smiled on the other end. You're a better man than most give you credit for, Bumpy. I'm not a good man, Frank. I'm just a father. Same thing. Within a month, the Ruthie Johnson Scholarship Fund was up and running. That first year, it sent 23 kids to college. Over the next decade, it sent hundreds more. Every student who received it got a letter with their award. It read, "The scholarship is funded by people who believe every child deserves a chance. Work hard, make your family proud. And remember, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." The letter was unsigned. But in Harlem, everyone knew who wrote it. Years later, in 1975, a young woman named Grace Washington stood at a podium accepting her doctorate in medicine from Columbia University. She was the first in her family to graduate college, the first to wear a white coat. During her speech, she said something that brought the entire room to its feet. "I wouldn't be here today without the Ruthie Johnson Scholarship. I was just a poor girl from Harlem with no real future. But someone I never met believed in me. Someone gave me a chance, and I want every young person here to understand, sometimes the people who save us aren't who we expect. Sometimes the world calls them criminals, but I call them heroes." In the audience, Ruthie Johnson, now 30 years old and a mother of two, wiped away tears. After the ceremony, Grace walked up to her. "You're Ruthie Johnson," she said. "The scholarship, it's named after you." Ruthie nodded. "My father started it. After something terrible happened to me, he wanted something good to come out of it." Grace smiled. "Your father saved my life. He saved so many of us. Thank you." Ruthie looked at her and returned the smile. "He would have been proud to." "Hear you say that. He passed away 7 years ago. But he always told me the same thing. Protect people. Give them a chance. That's real power." Grace hugged her. He was right. Bumpy Johnson died in 1968. More than 5,000 people attended his funeral. Politicians, musicians, community leaders. Some who broke the law. Many who changed the world. And hundreds of kids whose lives had been changed by the scholarship he created. But almost none of them knew the full story. They didn't know about June 10th, 1961. About 4 hours when Bumpy Johnson tore through New York like a storm to save his daughter. Ruthie knew. She told her children, and they told theirs. The story became legend, not because Bumpy took down 3 men who had kidnapped his daughter, though he did. Not because he stood face to face with the Italian mob and didn't blink, though that happened too. The story lived on because of what he did after. He could have kept the money. He could have used it for power, for comfort, for anything. But instead, he took his daughter's pain and turned it into a future for kids just like her. Kids who needed someone to believe in them. That's power. Real power. June 15th, 1961. 4 hours. From 8 a.m., when the note was found, to 12 p.m., when Ruthie was back home, safe. 4 hours where Bumpy Johnson proved that nothing, not money, not power, not threats, not the rules of the street, nothing was more important than family. If this story of a father's love, 4 hours of chaos, and the legacy that came after moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe real men protect what matters most. Share this with someone who needs to hear what Bumpy Johnson did. On the day he became more than just a name from the streets. He became a father who turned tragedy into legacy. And ask yourself, what would you have done in those 4 hours? Let me know in the comments. And remember, the strongest man in the room isn't always the one with the loudest voice, or the biggest crew, or the deepest pockets. It's the one willing to risk everything to protect the people he loves. Bumpy Johnson proved that on June 15th, 1961.